What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of WNBA Today on CLNS, recapping the first day of Unrivaled, in which we saw 8 Unrivaled clubs square off on opening day on Monday. And truthfully, I'm just excited to watch professional women's basketball in the US again because we don't know when the next time will be that we're able to watch these kinds of games. I mean, we have an Unrivaled season that started on January 5th, goes on for the next few months, and then with CBA negotiations still in limbo, we don't really know when the WNBA season will begin again and if there will be a WNBA season in 2026. So I'm extra cherishing the opportunity to watch some of my favorite basketball players squaring off in Miami in the second year of Unrivaled, which for those of you that are not familiar with Unrivaled, it's a full court 3-on-3 basketball league co-founded by Brianna Stewart and Afisa Collier. And this season, there are 8 teams. There were 2 additional clubs added from last year, and there's also a developmental pool so that when there are injuries, you have 6 players to a club. When there are injuries and you're down 2 or 3 players, you can tap into the developmental pool, and players like Haley Von Lith can come in and provide some backup. And so a lot of stars playing for Unrivaled this season. Obviously, there are some notable omissions from previous years. So no Angel Reese, no Sabrina Ionescu, but you do have pretty much a monopoly on the young talent in this league. You got Paige Bueckers, Dominique Malonga, Cameron Brink, Rakia Jackson. So many of the league's best young players are signed up. Sonia Citron, Kiki Reffen. So I think it's a pretty indicative of the fact that Unrivaled has found a way to keep WNBA players in the US over, instead of going overseas, which historically they've had to do. And obviously, there's been a lot of discussion around Unrivaled as it relates to the CBA negotiations. Nafisa Collier, who is out for the season, did speak on the broadcast about how she knows what it takes to invest in a sustainable league and to run a sustainable league. And if the WNBA can't do it, then they should find leadership that will. And so I think it has given players a little bit of a bargaining chip, not just because of the fact there's a competitive league to Unrivaled, but also because of the fact that you're now seeing, okay, everybody has amenities on campus, right? A lot of WNBA teams don't have their own practice facilities, like the Connecticut Sun, who I've covered. Like, they don't have their own practice facility. They share it with the Tribal Community Center. And so Unrivaled has been helpful in that regard as well. So with Unrivaled, there's kind of 2 things happening, right? There's the basketball being played, but also there is what it represents from a political standpoint. And so, and when I mean political, I mean when it comes to these negotiations, the players union and all of that. So I'm not gonna get too deep into today, but I did want to talk about what stood out to me from the first day of games. And there were a couple performers that really stood out, and I'll start with Chelsea Gray, who everybody knows has had just an incredible year of basketball. Chelsea Gray wins the championship MVP with Unrivaled last year with the Rose Club. Very few people expected the Rose Club would win the Unrivaled title. She also was coming off of a year where she dealt with a lot of injuries. And so when you were looking at the Unrivaled rosters, which I've had to make some predictions, it's really hard when you're looking at these rosters because all 8 teams have a bunch of talented players. Like, they tried to make these teams as even as possible. And so the Rose Club ended up being projected by a lot of people, including ESPN, I believe, as one of the inferior teams in the pool. And then they go out and win the inaugural Unrivaled championship. And Chelsea Gray was at the forefront of all of that, hitting clutch shots and going on an offensive rampage for much of that season. So then she starts the WNBA season, and the Las Vegas Aces obviously finished that season by winning their 3rd title in 4 years, and Chelsea Gray was a big part of that, although that was the Asia Wilson, Jackie Young show for certain. And so I was curious to see what Chelsea Gray was going to look like coming back with the Rose Club, looking to defend their title. And also, she's played a lot of basketball over the past year and has had a lot of success. And she was the number 1 player that stood out to me on opening day. And honestly, it shouldn't be a surprise because clearly the full court 3-on-3 format does really suit her game, but her initial stat line really pops off the page. So Chelsea Gray finishes the game with 35 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals, which is actually exactly the kind of stat lines she was putting up last year with the Rose Club. And they do blow out the Lunar Owls 80-60. And fortunately for the Lunar Owls, they are down Nafisa Collier for the entirety of the season, and she was kind of going to be the anchor and the cornerstone of that team. She was the MVP of Unrivaled's first season. So it's a bummer that she had to have 2 off-season ankle surgeries and will miss the next couple months in the entirety of the season. But it was a good first game for the Rose Club, who start the season as the defending champs 1-0. The other player that really stood out to me from opening day was Paige Bueckers, who already had a fantastic rookie season, was the near unanimous Rookie of the Year choice, and really established herself as one of the best guards in the WNBA, I should say. Even though the Dallas Wings did not have a lot of success, I think that few would say that her rookie season was at all disappointing. This Breeze Club is really fun. They're a young team. And I think that's has kind of been their joke and kind of the air around them as they are the young team in the pack. And Paige Bueckers is the head of the snake. And in her first game, a 69-62 win over the Phantom, she finished with 24 points, 6 assists, and 2 blocks, beat the halftime buzzer, had some really nice jumpers. And just in general, I think you're seeing her play this kind of flawless style of basketball that everybody's kind of come to almost be overly used to with Paige. Like, she doesn't turn the ball over, she doesn't make mistakes. She was 7 to 15 from the field, which actually for her, I feel like she's always picking her spots really carefully, and so it's rare to even shoot below 50%. But she's really found her way. Playing this sport, obviously everything's slowed down for her quite a bit, and I think that this full court 3-on-3 format is going to benefit her quite a bit. And so the other player I wanted to mention was Allisha Gray, who is coming off of her best WNBA season yet. She was first team All WNBA, had a great season for the Atlanta Dream. And I'm always curious about the continuity between WNBA success and Unrivaled success. So she had a great game on opening day, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and she led the Mist to a 72-56 win over the Hive. And she did it all in 12 minutes, which is pretty impressive. I mean, in general, the fact of the matter is that a lot of these stat lines that you're seeing Unrivaled players put up, they're doing in 10, 15 minutes a game. And so you have to kind of come in and make the most of those minutes. And one thing I remember from last year, I was in Medley, Florida, covering Unrivaled. And even though players are playing for 15 minutes, the wear and tear feels pretty similar to a real game for them because the pace is so intense. There's a ton of physicality. And so one of the things that Unrivaled did from last year to this year is that they actually cut back-to-backs because they felt like that was contributing to injury, and they're prioritizing the player and experience first and foremost. So you look at Allisha Gray's stat line. Obviously, she is going to be a critical member of this Mist club, but the fact that she's able to put up those kinds of numbers in just 12 minutes, that's the kind of performance that you'll see quite a bit from star players in Unrivaled throughout the season. Somebody else who really stood out to me was Azura Stevens, who is also on the Rose Club with Chelsea Gray, with Shakira Austin. That's a fun young club that they have. They're playing alongside their veteran point guard. And Stevens had a great season. She was a most improved player candidate for the Los Angeles Sparks. I think because the Sparks didn't make the playoffs, and I don't want to say they were disappointing necessarily. I don't know what expectations exactly were for them, but because of that, her season didn't get a ton of buzz. But when I was going to make my selection for most improved player, Veronica Burton was my easy choice, but she was certainly in that conversation. And alongside Chelsea Gray in that 80-60 win over the Lunar Owls, she put up a great stat line, 19 points and 10 rebounds in just 10 minutes of action. So that's the kind of production you're going to want to see from Unrivaled bigs. There's a lot of good young bigs in this league. Aaliyah Edwards was one of the ones that stood out to me. She was on the Lunar Owls, so she was one of the top performers that came on a losing side, but she tallied a 23-point, 12 rebound double-double, and that's exciting because she had a weird sophomore season playing on the Washington Mystics and not really playing a whole lot because of Kiki's emergence in her rookie year, and then gets traded to the Connecticut Sun and starts to find her way more over there. But she looked really good in their first game. And then the other one that really stood out to me was Brittney Sykes, who had a 19.7 rebound stat line, and what was amazing, again, 13 minutes for her, and she played a big part of the Laces 58-42 victory over the Vinyl. So she's coming off of her first All-Star appearance, one that she really rallied for, and she's another one of kind of the elite players here that's competing in Unrivaled. And so those are maybe 6 of the performers that really stood out to me. This was kind of the Chelsea Gray show, and you don't want to extrapolate too much from one game. Like, there are some players that I expected would look better in day one that just were not great. Like Kelsey Mitchell, I thought was going to be a little bit more dominant. I loved what Atlanta Smith was able to do defensively, tallying 5 blocks. I think she had quite an impact on the game. But across the board, I think you're going to see it's still too early to tell who are the good teams and who are the less good teams. But certainly look like the Rose Club are going to be one of those front runners. The one thing I was a little disappointed by, last year when I look back at the Unrivaled season, You had buzzer beaters on night one. I think it was Skylar Diggins that had a game winner in the first Unrivaled game, and that generated a lot of buzz for the league. So there wasn't any games that went down to the wire like that on day one, but hey, there's plenty more basketball to be played. And I think those kinds of moments are just good because, I think that there are a lot of detractors or people that are just like, okay, I'm not a full court 3-on-3 kind of person. I like watching 5-on-5 basketball. So you need like highlight moments. You need these big time plays to draw in the average viewer. And so I think when Skylar Diggins is talking trash and hitting, clutch time shots, like that brings in people that maybe are seeing that on Twitter and then they're saying, hey, maybe I'll tune into the next game. So all the games are on True TV and TNT. I personally really like watching 3-on-3 in general. I like watching a 3-on-3 half court. I maybe prefer 3-on-3 half court than full court, but honestly, I like this format as well. So I see there's pros and cons to both sides. I'm always somebody that tunes in to watch like FIBA 3-on-3. I was a big fan of that team with Ryan Howard and Haley Von Lith. And just kind of seeing that style of basketball where things are a little bit different, but there's also a lot of overlap between conventional 5-on-5 hoops. So as I mentioned, like we don't know where the WNBA season is going after this. We don't know if there's going to be a season. Negotiations are ongoing, but we do know that Unrivaled is in its second season, and after a successful inaugural season, they added more roster spots. Players are getting paid really well, which is great. And we're gonna see like what some of the young players look like. Like it was cool to see Dominique Malonga play, right? Like there's a lot of intriguing players that maybe I saw a little bit in their rookie seasons or in their early seasons, and now we're gonna get to see them play more extensively. I thought Veronica Burton looked really good. She's someone who obviously generated so much buzz in her first, I almost wanted to say not rookie campaign, but first year with the Golden State Valkyries, where she went from being a backup, kind of borderline out of the NBA player to a all-star caliber guard. And so this season is an opportunity for a lot of those players to keep developing with some of the best young minds in basketball and some of the best coaches. You got Teresa Weatherspoon, you got Noah Quinn. So a lot to love about the season. So check it out. Let me know if you tuned in for Unrivaled Day 1, what stood out to you. Those are some of the players that stood out to me. It was a lot of fun to watch. I have to say I'm a big fan of the Breeze Club so far. It's just fun to see all the young players play alongside one another. And obviously Paige Bueckers is a lot of fun. I think her game translates pretty well to the 3-on-3 format, but I'm also invested in the Rose Club because it would be fun to see if Chelsea Gray can kind of continue the winning after winning the Unrivaled Championship, then the WNBA Championship, and now this. So you can follow along. Unrivaled's site has been pretty good about showing box scores and games and schedules, so check that out. But let me know if you have any thoughts on the Unrivaled season so far. Is this something you're tuning into? I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, so I'm curious who is and isn't opting to tune in. And we'll have more coverage. I'll probably do like a weekly Unrivaled update from what stood out from the last week of play, and we'll discuss some individual performers, standouts, things like that. So keep checking back into WNBA Today on CLNS. We'll also have some updates on CBA negotiations and other offseason topics. I would love to cover a free agency and a draft, so hopefully those are coming. But obviously the players union and the league are going to have to see eye to eye. So thank you as always for watching. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll have more content coming soon.